All right, are we ready to get going? Great. All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to today's Smith in the World panel. I'm Erin Cohn. I'm the director of the Wordle Center for Leadership, and I am joined by my co-host, who I will let introduce herself.
Hi, folks. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Emily Norton, and I am the director of the Design Thinking Initiative.
Great. All right. Well, this is the first panel of the Smith in the World conference series. The series will include sessions starting with CLDI today, which we'll tell you more about in a moment. And it will be followed up with future sessions that will feature students who have completed internships in STEM and health professions, education, design, archives and museums, and government law and public policy. We welcome all who have taken the time to join us today, including students, prospective Smithies, faculty, staff, family and friends, supervisors, colleagues, and everyone else. Thank you for joining us to hear from these amazingly curious and engaged and impact-driven students who Emily and I had the honor of spending some time with to get them prepared for their CLDI experience. The Smith in the World Conference is intended to celebrate and share students off-campus experiential learning, including internships, community service, research, or study abroad, and students will offer reflections on how these experiences have impacted and enriched their academic and professional paths. For the first 12 years, the Smith in the World Conference was held on campus, but in the fall of 2020, the conference was switched to a virtual format for reasons you can probably imagine. And we were surprised to see a significant increase in audience numbers and participation. And so therefore, we're going to continue to offer this conference virtually. So we're really glad that you decided to join us today for this exceptional program. And I'm going to turn it over to Emily.
Thanks, Erin. So our panelists today will give short presentations about their summer 2022 CLDI immersion experiences. And CLDI stands for Collaborative Leadership and Design Immersions, and it's a program that is co-sponsored by the Design Thinking Initiative and the Wordle Center for Leadership. And the program connects students with embedded, fully paid summer internship experiences around the world, where they have the chance to practice collaborative change making in the context of a local organization and to help lead the advancement of socially, economically, and environmentally healthy communities. The program partners with host organizations in countries both abroad as well as within the US, and selects fellows to work with those organizations in teams of, in this case, mostly pairs, and in other cases, anywhere from 2 to 4 students. So we support these teams through deep learning in human-centered design and collaborative leadership prior to their internship experiences. And we help them reflect on and share their experiences upon their return, which is what we get to do and hear about today. So in order to maximize our time together in this short hour, we're going to let folks introduce themselves, and we'll have students present back to back without time for questions in between. So as your questions arise, please hold on to them to the end, because we'll hope to have a chance to open it up for discussion. We should also note that we are missing 2 of our CLDI fellows who couldn't be here today, but who have both recorded short videos that we will share in lieu of live presentations. And just a note that today's session is being recorded. So we ask that you keep your microphones muted while folks are presenting. And without further ado, Erin, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah. All right. So let's get this party started, and we're going to invite Teagan and Valerie to share their presentation. They can share their screen and kick us off.
Hi, my name is Valerie. She, her pronouns. I'm a junior at Smith College, studio art major, Latin American Studies minor. And hello, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. I'm Teagan. I'm a class of 2025. I am an anthropology major and very excited to be here. Good. All right. Here are some beautiful shots of where we went. We were in Monteverde, Costa Rica. These showcase the amazing sites of Costa Rica, specifically their amazing wildlife, biodiversity, incredible sights. We were in the cloud forest Monterey. So this past summer, me and Teagan both worked for an NGO called Klima. They're focused on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, capturing more carbon than they emit, and adapting as fast as possible to climate change, mostly through community initiatives. And some of the things they taught us is about like a circular economy and how that's different from specifically how we take resources, create items, and then dispose of them, and they're trying to kind of change that up. And I also learned about upcycling. So I'm going to be going through a few of my projects that I did during this past summer. So I worked at La Tilichera, which is a bartering system and store that people would come into, mostly people from the community who had items that they wanted to give a second life to, and would exchange it for other items using a point system. But then there would also be, they can bring in any kinds of things, can be like clothing, toys, shoes, that would prevent it from becoming trash, but also supports like the local economy and alternative economies, especially since this arrived during the pandemic. And one of the things they wanted to do that I assisted in was creating a product for La Tilichera that was a high quality creative product that we could sell as souvenirs from excess denim that they had from that couldn't really be given away or exchanged again. So we would try to upcycle it, where instead of recycling, where we make it back into like the same jeans that they were, we would make into a new product. So one of the first prototypes I did was this denim tote bag made out of like a patchwork kind of style, made from jeans that had some deficiencies in them or like couldn't really be worn anymore. This is the first one I made. And the second one I made came from some upcycled material, so mostly breathable, like textiles, like linen. And we came like to the idea to create children's clothing because we saw there wasn't as many children's clothing in the area that was being sold. So we wanted to create some overalls that were gender neutral and form fitting. And here are some photos of some of the branding that we did for La Tilichera and some of the product iterations and some of the tags that would go along with it. That's some of it being sewn onto the product. And another thing I participated in, which I really loved, was working with some local artisans and even people like real professionals who were kind of teaching us to make it a higher quality product by doubling down on our technique, but also having creative like workshops. We went out in the area. We're trying to get inspired by nature, and I worked a lot with these people in the community, and it was really amazing. So some of the these are the three prototypes that came out of that workshop, where I created a denim jacket, this kind of I would say fanny pack, but also shoulder bag, multi-use out of this patchwork kind of thing that I learned from the people there, and this reversible denim hat, bucket hat that would have like interior patterned textile and the outside would be denim. So a lot of this was a lot of denim. And my final project was trying to find a way to mix art and upcycling together. So this is some of the textiles from the Tilichera that had stains or something that couldn't really, again, be given a second life. So we would upcycle it. And the final product was this painting that I made that combined these two. And this is some of the patterns I made from that. And that is now hanging up in the Tilichera. So yeah.
Before I get into my technical aspects of my internship, I want to address the fact that we were both of us in two separate wonderful host families. We were really able to connect really well with our host brothers, me especially with my host mom, Sylvia, on the bottom left with Valerie in her kitchen. She taught me a lot, and I still keep in touch with her and with the family. They really brought us a lot of joy, and they really made us feel welcome. My project was, so while Valerie was in La Tilichera, which is maybe a 20-minute walk from where I was working in La Huerta Comunitaria, which is a community garden. It was previously a bullpen, but in the whole idea of upcycling and reusing, this bullpen turned into a community garden for the local Monteverde residents. A big part of my work was working with composting and making sure that the garden was available and sustainable for all of the community members here. And so we gave tours. We also had a Mercadito Verde, which was like a local farmer's market every week. And we did lots of planting and cleaning, and we made that sign up there that showcases the community garden. I really liked that I also did 3 compost workshops. So these were 1 to 2 hour long workshops, 3 separate occasions. The 3 different occasions were describing the different ways that we could make DIY composting. I really appreciated this because I liked that there were so many different ways to compost, and they all depend on the family's availability, on how much waste they had, on how much space they had. So I presented this at the community garden, and there was a lot of interest, a lot of prototypes and learning, which I think the IDP classes helped a lot with. And I think my favorite was the takakura. I think I have more pictures in the next slide. So this is takakura. It's where you have 2 different solutions of different types of microorganisms. You put it in a big basket, and basically that's the way that the organic waste kind of decomposes. And I also had the amazing opportunity to work with children at a local school, as well as adults at other institutions. Yeah, so one way I think I grew is that I really came out of my shell during this experience. I had to speak a language, of course, that I was kind of familiar with at home, but really had to practice it with other people quite independently. And I think I created really long-lasting relationships by putting myself out there and having to work with others. And this was, so the right picture is a birthday party they all threw for me. And it was really great to meet everyone. And I felt really proud at the end of the semester when I felt like I can talk more and present more easily. For my discovery, upon reflection with Erin and Emily, I realized that I came in thinking that my host family's house, which is the top left, was the same as everyone else's house over there. I realized that even though there were houses like on the bottom, a 3-story house from a woman who moved from the US, or where I am in an Airbnb, that's like a sphere, which is a huge tourist attraction and one that was inspired by The Hobbit. The bottom picture shows that there truly is a disparity, that Costa Rica is not a monolith, that a lot of tourism does hide some of this destruction from huge weather events like this house that was on the side of a sidewalk that unfortunately was destroyed. So I think it was a very humbling experience to learn that my experience as a tourist was very different than the local experience. Yeah, I would say my discovery was that, like, since everything being sustainable was definitely a lot more accessible in Monteverde, like there was composting more easily available, but also there was just a greater appreciation for nature, and that was built into the relationships and how people talked and moved and walked around in the space. And I've never really experienced that before. And I kind of learned and discovered that it's really easy. It's easier to be sustainable once it's more accessible to you, which is very different from the United States, which I feel like in the United States, you have to go a lot of extra lengths to not use single-use plastic or to compost, even when that's not accessible to you. So I felt like it was great to be in a different environment where the life was different and where I felt like it was ingrained in like the community and people's values to care about the environment and their surroundings. And just the way that it was ingrained in the community, food, my goodness, we ate so much and so incredibly. I think the attention to detail that people put into their food and the way that they avoided processed food and plastic food, I think really shifted my perspective. In fact, I moved to Tenny House, which is a vegetarian co-op where you make your own food. I know it will have a lasting impact on my health and my cooking and the way I form community. And that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All the silent applause. Hooray. Thank you so much, you two. And nice job sticking to 10 minutes exactly. You did it like right on the dot. Excellent. All right. So let's invite Achillea and Jade to go next.
Hi, sorry, it's been a while since my last Zoom presentation. I'm trying to see. Okay, so hi, my name is Achillea. And Jade and I did our summer internship in Madrid, Spain at IDT UPM. And a little about ourselves. So my name is Achillea. I'm an engineering major. And currently I'm a senior. Oh, Jade, I don't think we can hear you. I don't know about other people.
I can't hear either. Yeah. There you are.
How about now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jade. I'm currently a junior and I'm studying studio art with the focus on digital media and environmental science and policy.
Yeah, so in the summer, we were working at Centro de Innovación de Tecnología para el Desarrollo Humano, which is the Center of Technological Innovation for Human Development. It is really similar to Seeds at Smith, if you're familiar with Center of Sustainability at our university. So IDT UPM is also affiliated with the university, the Polytech University in Madrid. And that's where we worked.
So there we worked on Net Zero City, which is a UN project with the goal of helping 100 European cities achieve carbon neutrality by 2030. We read, edited, and reviewed many of these case studies for them to be published in their report and newsletter. We also helped translate and summarize the main points of projects in order to be formatted into their emerging website. At the end, we gathered individual research on social innovation and wrote a paper to be published in their final report as well.
Yeah, and so for my internship experience, my biggest discovery is to learn about the history and the infrastructure of European cities. So while I was in Europe, I was able to travel to different countries like France, Italy, Portugal, and the Netherlands. And it was really cool to observe different infrastructures and how public transportation is a really big part of the European lifestyle. And that is really integrated into our project, where we focus on sustainable practices, because public transportation is like one of the major focuses. And like while I was in Europe, I was able to see like a lot of advertisement of the organizations we were working for and that are affiliated with the Sustainability Center in Madrid. And it's really cool to see how Europe, there's so much culture and history that in America, everything is developed more so in the last 100 years. And it's really cool to observe that people there in Europe are not super reliant on automobiles, versus in America, there's a really heavy emphasis on driving cars everywhere. And two major areas of growth for me is one, to be self-sufficient in a foreign city, and which I found super useful now coming back to Smith and having to do another internship during J term. I learned how to adapt to like a different environment and still being able to make new friends. And okay. Another area of growth is just self-advocacy, because the internship is unpaid. And the European working style is really different from the American one I'm used to. So the structure is relatively loose. And in order to really get things done, I have to speak up for myself and tell my supervisor, oh, this is the area I'm really interested in. Do you have any projects I can work with? Any clients I can talk to? And then she will give me the information. So I really have to speak up for myself. And this is a skill I find super valuable because I'm an engineering major, and a lot of the time, especially as a female, you tend to feel intimidated in a male-dominated industry. But I found this a really valuable experience just in Madrid, how I learned to really voice my opinions and needs. My biggest joy while doing this internship is just to explore the city and fully immerse myself in the language. And I have a fun anecdote when I was exploring the city with Jade. So there is this neighborhood called Usera, which sees a huge influx of Asian immigrants. So it is just a suburb right outside Madrid, and Jade and I went to explore there. So when we were ordering food at the restaurant, we kind of mixed 4 languages together because it was a Chinese restaurant. Jade speaks Cantonese and I know Mandarin, but we were in Spain and we talked to each other in English. So it was a little mind-blowing to use all these languages at once. And it was really fun to see how people reacted to our not being able to communicate ourselves, even knowing all these languages. And lastly, I want to talk about the impact of this experience. So after spending the summer in Madrid, I was able to actually get to know a lot about the Spanish-speaking cultures. And while I was in Madrid, I befriended lots of people from Latin America, actually. And this intrigued me to explore the Spanish-speaking world even more. So in the winter, I found this opportunity to work at a nonprofit organization called Humanos 3D in Medellin, Colombia. And there I was able to make prosthetic parts that are donated to amputees in Colombia, just using 3D printing. And without the experience in Madrid, I would not have found this interest to discover more of the Spanish-speaking world. So that is something I'm really appreciative of. And I'll pass on the next slides to Jade.
So one thing that surprised me was the drastic difference in work culture. It's the complete opposite of America, where it's very much grind culture and very competitive. So I appreciated the collaborative work environment and just the friendly nature of the workplace while we were there. The people joked around in group texting and would send emails ending with abrazo or hugs. One area that I grew in was in my self-confidence and self-advocacy. Being in a foreign country really pushed me out of my comfort zone. It forced me to use Spanish, which was really hard despite preparations. Having that language barrier and being in a new place felt really heavy. So when I came back to the US, where I actually do know the language, I realized that I suddenly had no excuses now that there aren't those same barriers. So I found myself seizing opportunities as they arise, speaking up in class more often, giving less disclaimers before I share my thoughts, and being less apologetic and not being afraid of taking up space. There were many things that I enjoyed about this experience. For one, exploring with Achillea. And one of my favorites was just trying all the food, specifically the, click one more, specifically the paella, salmorejo, churros, and also visiting Portugal, which is the birthplace of pastel de nata. A little tidbit, I thought we have them in China and they're called dantat, and I didn't realize that they were actually Portuguese. So visiting Portugal and being able to try it was just a really, really wholesome experience for me. So this experience broadened my perception of the environmental industry and job possibilities postgraduate. Next. Before, my view on the environmental policy industry was very big picture and a very science-based perspective. So working there, I got to work with projects that were smaller scale, The subtopics are practically endless. So if you're passionate about anything relating to environmental policy, you can probably get into the work. It might not be that you're going to solve climate change, but you can still help people and communities have a better life. This experience also made me want to travel more and experience new cultures, hence my being in Denmark for a study abroad at the moment, hence it's dark outside right now. And yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks, you two. So exciting to see all of these pictures and get a chance to get that visual of everything that you all did too. All right, so I would like to invite Rhys and Vanessa Nicole to go next.
Thank you. Okay, hopefully you see my screen. Okay, awesome. So yeah, we went to St. Louis, Missouri, so a little bit more closer to here than the rest of the folks, and we worked with Creative Reaction Lab. And yeah, this is us. So getting us started, I am Rhys. I use he, they pronouns. I'm a senior graduating in a couple of months, which is kind of terrifying. And I am a double major in computer science and English. And passing it off to Vanessa Nicole.
Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa Nicole. I use all pronouns. I am a junior and a government major.
Awesome. So yeah, just to go a little bit more into what into where we went. Creative Reaction Lab is an educational nonprofit working towards racial and educational justice.
Yes, and just to share a little bit about the images that we have here, the Creative Reaction Lab has a very unique problem-solving tool or framework that is called the Equity-Centered Community Design Tool. And we're going to talk a little bit about it as we go on, but it also comes in a field guidebook that is the picture to the top left. And it is this guidebook that allows us to investigate how to apply the ECCD in different scenarios to hone in on personal problem-solving skills and consciousness raising within ourselves. And one of CRX's lab's goals is to build an intergenerational movement of redesigners for justice.
I think this one's also yours, Vanessa Nicole.
Yes. And to start off, we want to share about our experience in St. Louis, Missouri. We definitely went in with an open mind and also with a different advantage, I think, of being closer to home, being in an environment that we are familiar to with the American culture that's similar in Massachusetts. So we were in Missouri in person, but we worked remotely. And there was a lot of open space in our Airbnb and community that we were in. So we got to experience the local community when we did errands, because we had to do a lot of grocery shopping. And when we walked outside for some exercise, and when we also had the opportunity to work outside with our laptops, that was really important for us. There was a nice patio and backyard, and we took advantage of that.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd add to it was that we also happened to work with Creative Reaction Lab in a period where they were expanding as an organization. So it was really useful to sort of see them in that moment of transition. And it definitely added a sort of like, because some of it was remote, some of it was in person, and all of that moving around was definitely interesting to navigate, to say the least. Moving on to what we actually did, and now I'm going to pass it back off to Vanessa Nicole to start us off.
Yes, here I have my role as fundraising and development associate. I have here some of the sketches I made in actually the journal that was given to us in IDP. It was really handy during that experience. And to get straight to it, the goal for me as a fundraising and development intern was to understand the inner workings of a social enterprise, a nonprofit like CRX Lab, and to also learn from the tools and frameworks of ECCD to work on research for fundraising, grants, and partnerships. So a lot of my work was to look and find partnerships that would be willing to fund CRX Lab to reach out to them and to create that relationship for future network and relationship building. And personally, my goal was to really practice and understand these frameworks and build them into my own culture, whether that be personal or work, and to learn from mentors and leaders in nonprofit space like my supervisor and the CEO of the organization. Now I'll pass it to Rhys.
Thank you. So first off, I wanted, because I realized we didn't go over the whole associate thing. So yeah, folks at CRX Lab are very, very intentional about the language that they use. So some of the way that this manifests is in the way that they refer to folks in the that, you know, work for them or work with them rather. One of this was the ways in which they wouldn't refer to us as interns because we weren't interns, we were like associates. And I think this was something that they had created or like maintained over a couple of cohorts. And so yeah, I worked as a marketing and design associate. And the work projects that I worked on were to co-create the Equity and Learning Institute, which I think they're currently launching right now. So that's a little exciting to see a little bit of what I had done. Planning their mindful return to social media, because again, working on the marketing and design like team department, they were very intentional about like the breaks they were taking and when, and, you know, taking a step back to sort of like reevaluate content and the decisions they were making. And something that I was also doing sort of as that like mindful return to social media was compiling content opportunities from their already existing resources. So just going through the bunch of stuff on their like Google Drive, on their existing like webinars and stuff like that. So yeah, that was some of the work that I did while there.
And that was really great. And to add on to the experience, I think Rhys really put it wonderfully about how conscious CRX Lab is with their values and even in the way that they use language. And I think it really speaks to the collaboration piece of their values and work culture. So I think one of the things that stood out the most and that Rhys and I have a consensus on is their amazing work culture and culture of care for one another. We first felt completely embedded in the culture. We felt a part of their community, and we felt that we learned from their ECCD, their equity-centered community design values of humility, compassion, respecting historical challenges, and making equity pledges, which you can see on the right, of making a pledge of justice and change by creating or promising an action to a specific community. And everybody in the CRX Lab community was able to do this and does this annually, and make sure to hold up to that value and personal vow. And as you see to the left, a table of collaboration is created and truly respected across the culture. But I just have to just really highlight and reiterate that the compassion and language setting allowed everyone, including or personally myself, to be on the same page and be connected with one another, but most importantly with myself. And what I noticed with others, that they were also connected with themselves more by building a healthy language amongst each other and a healthy understanding of the work that we're doing, so that we're happy doing the work and we're making others happy, especially the communities that we're serving.
Awesome, thank you. Now going into One Discovery, Growth Avenue, and Favorite Aspect. On my end, there's, for the discovery part, understanding feedback and truly like how important it is to like move receiving and giving feedback from just like the theoretical into the actual practical, and like knowing how to specifically ask for the type of feedback that you need. Growth area or avenue, time boundaries. So like not only in the way that they affect myself and my work, but also the ways in which they can affect like work within a team. So it was, they helped me sort of realize my own needs around that, my own like yeah, like, so related to time management sort of. And one of my favorite aspects was co-working with my supervisor Sage, who yeah, she would just like she would just reserve this like time block and set a couple of like hours to have like pottery videos in the background or something, and just like have a space, just hold space for folks to co-work in. And it was also very nice to sort of see everyone in the org, or like other people in the org jump on the call and see the way that they would work together. It was very interesting to see that model.
Yes, I agree. And for me, there's just a lot of reflection and new reflections that came out of the experience. I found that personally, a workplace, a community that is equity centered, value and impact focused, and co-creative is really important. And to break away from that hustle culture that I think often guides us not so healthily. And so creating that new self-awareness where if the work is slow or the work is having its timeline to grow, then that is okay. And that just grew my passion for leadership and design even more.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think we've basically covered a lot of the reflection part in the discovery, growth avenue, and favorite aspect. But would you have anything else to add, Vanessa, Nicole?
Just want to say that it was a great opportunity for growth and motivation. And it was a lovely experience to work with you, Rhys, and to learn from the CLDI folks and experience. And I don't know if you want to shout out what we have on, Rhys.
Yes, we have, oh my God, we got t-shirts from them, and they're very, very exciting. Mine says Creative Reaction Lab. What does yours say, Vanessa, Nicole?
Mine says Redesigners for Justice.
And yeah, I don't know, it's just it's for me another example through which they, I don't know, just like paid attention to little things and helped us feel welcome through that. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, you two. Lovely. All right. So up next are Paula and Fhynree, who traveled together, but Paula couldn't be here today. So Paula sent in a short video, and in that video, it explains kind of what they did together. So we're going to have Paula's video go first, and then Fhynree can follow up after the video. So Emily, you're going to screen share and show the video. It worked when we practiced.
I know, I'm so sorry, folks. It is confused. Okay.
There we go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Paula Buaiz Suwwan, and I'm just finished my junior year at Smith. I'm a government major, a history minor, and I'm here today to share a little bit about my collaborative leadership and design immersion experience in Medellin, Colombia. I traveled with Fhynree, and I really apologize for not being able to join synchronously today. I'm currently traveling abroad, so I don't have reliable access to Wi-Fi. But I'm still really excited to share a little bit about my trip with you all. So I traveled to work at the Latin American Leadership Academy, also known as LALA. So LALA provides training in a variety of skills such as critical thinking, leadership, entrepreneurship, and others for underprivileged youth in Latin America. And the idea is to prepare and empower the next generation of Latin American leaders. I'm Brazilian, so this mission really resonated with me, and I was able to join their communications and their operations teams. My biggest while at LALA was to plan and run the LALA Open House event. This was LALA's first in-person event since the start of the pandemic, and we were really excited to welcome students, parents, alumni, staff, donors, and a variety of other stakeholders to our brand new building in Medellin. Some other things I worked on was writing press releases and running interviews with press. As you can see there, we got a newspaper article published in O Globo, which is one of the biggest newspapers in Brazil. I also trained speakers for the LALA birthday call, which is an annual Zoom call with about 150 people. I also developed pitch decks and works on some website support. So I've been asked to share a couple of things. The first thing is a discovery I had during my experience. And I think I was really surprised when I got to Columbia to find out how young the LALA team was. Everyone in my comms team was still in college, and they were really excited to assign me real life work with real life consequences. And they were really confident in my abilities. And I think at first that was really scary for me. But the main thing I discovered was that my liberal arts education has really prepared me for my professional work. Even if I haven't done a specific kind of project yet, the skills I've developed at Smith in terms of writing, critical thinking, and communications have really built a solid foundation for me to go on into my career. I was also asked to share a growth experience I had during this experience. And I think the main thing I've discovered is that I've stepped out of my comfort zone a lot through CLDI. I grew in terms of my language abilities with Spanish. I already spoke Spanish before the trip, but nothing like now. I think I've become a lot more fluent because of the need to speak to people on the streets, to speak to people at work. During the LALA open house event, for example, I had to give a speech by myself in Spanish, and that was really intimidating at first, but I think I really took ownership of that, trained, prepared, and now I feel a lot more comfortable using Spanish. And I also came out of my shell a little bit, I think, in terms of having to have initiative to start conversations with people and go with the flow, even if the plans aren't quite all figured out yet. And I think that's really carried over to Smith and made me a lot more outgoing and social, and only great things have come from that so far. I was also asked to share what was one of my favorite things during this trip, and it's been really hard because there were so many amazing moments. But I think my solo long weekend trip to Salento, Colombia deserves this title of the one favorite, because Salento is this small town with so many outdoor adventure experiences, and it was so much fun. I got to go biking, mountain biking. I got to go hiking to see the tallest palm trees in the world in the Cocora Valley. I visited coffee farms. I went horseback riding. Overall, it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous place. And I had so much fun. And really, I think it was another experience of growth because I was once again stepping outside of my comfort zone and having to have that flexibility. So as you can see, this experience has impacted me in a million different ways, from making me more outgoing and adventurous to giving me the transferable work skills such as project management and media relations. So this has had a big impact in my future professional plans. I've decided to continue studying communications and to ultimately work in the field of education reform because I was very passionate about what LALA was doing. And I think the last thing I want to share with you all is that I've learned that design isn't just about like artistic projects. Things like showing up to meetings with a prototype, switching back and forth between this expansive thinking and this contractive thinking, and just exercising creativity whenever possible. I learned this through CLDI, and I've discovered that this is applicable to any field. I used it in my communications project proposals. I now use it at Smith when I'm even like brainstorming an essay, and I know that I'll continue to use it in my future. So thank you so much for this opportunity to share with you all, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of the presentations. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks to Paula, wherever Paula is right now. We'll make sure that Paula gets access to this recording too, so she can see the whole thing. Fhynree, would love to have you share a little bit about your experience at LALA as well. We can't hear you if you're talking, Fhynree. I don't know if
No.
It's oh, there you go. Oh, okay, good.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
No worries. Hello, everyone. My name is Fhynree. I am a junior studying Africana Studies and Reproductive Health Rights and Justice. And I was Paula's partner working in Latin American Leadership Academy in Medellin, Colombia. And in this very first picture is El Peñón de Guatapé, which I had the amazing opportunity to climb during our trip. And so the first, okay.
Okay, so first, I want to touch on my work at the Latin American Leadership Academy, while Paula mostly worked on kind of like indirect service work, like behind the scenes things. My work mostly focused on direct service work, like working with the alums of the programs that Lala did. So I was a part of the alumni engagement team. So when we arrived, Lala had about like 10 to 15 cohorts of alumni, and they wanted to create an alumni network that was able to support their fast growing alumni numbers. And so my project was to design and propose an alumni association. So I partnered with their DEA team, diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, as well as had interviews with different alumni, as well as people who worked at Lala, to see how like what their view, what they would want in an alumni association, as well as like to consider language barriers, like age difference, so many different things that I had never really considered myself, like access to technology and how everything would work. And so by the end of it, I came out with a fully kind of like detailed planned network that says like, this is how I believe their alumni association should be structured. And I was able to present it to kind of their founder, which is really cool. Another really, so one thing, like Paula mentioned before, I was very surprised at how young our team was and how much trust they put in me to literally like design their alumni network, which was actually crazy. I was like, oh my God, are you sure? And however, one thing that taught me is that the collaborative leadership part in CLDI requires that you kind of trust in yourself and your skills and your experiences, and especially trust in the people around you and your team around you. And so I was really surrounded by an amazing group of people. Even Diego, who is this person right here, is the founder of Lala, the co-founder of Lala. And so he often like came up to me and was like, hey, how is it going? And we were able to conversate about like different things happening in our program. And so when I first came into Colombia, my Spanish was practically non-existent. And so I was kind of really shy. I'm not naturally a shy person, but when I was really in kind of like an unfamiliar environment, I was really shy. But once I started my Spanish classes, and Paula really was a big help for that, I was able to kind of step outside of my comfort zone, parts of Colombia, and experience the different cultures. And so after that, I really found out Colombia and really Latin America as a whole had such a beautiful amount of culture and different kind of like vibe, as people have mentioned before, with like their work culture and the things that they prioritize in terms of like food and sustainability, etc. And so one of my favorite experiences was one of my coworkers connected me with a Black women in Medellin group, where it was a group of about like 50 plus women who were mostly from the States and had moved to Colombia or were staying there long term. They helped me with things like where to get my hair done, which I was kind of really concerned about when first going. And they like met, and where we talked about like their life stories. And so that, coupled with my work in Lala, really expanded my horizons of what I saw for myself in the future. I had always known I wanted to go into kind of like social justice work, especially around like reproductive justice. However, I always kind of limited myself to the United States in terms of like where I'd want to work or what things I would want to work on. And so these experiences, meeting these women and seeing and working in Lala, especially with the CLDI mindset that I had, not only helped me grow the ways that I saw my projects, but the ways that I saw kind of my life and the people around me as well. Kind of allowed me to view different futures for myself. And lastly, and another thing that this experience has taught me is that there is always more ways for you to be like inclusive and work towards that. There are so many different avenues of things that I had never really considered as a potential barrier that somebody might be facing that I had to kind of consider when I was creating the alumni network. And so that, along with like actually meeting the people and seeing the ways that they've overcome it or the ways that they just work every day around it was really amazing to see. So overall, it was an amazing experience that's kind of changed the way I see myself and the work I do in the future. Also, kudos to this amazing like Columbia like slideshow. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you so much, Fhynree. It's so lovely to hear your experience. All right, we have one more presentation, which is a video from Juliana, who among the cohort was unfortunately the only one who ended up going alone, but also was this like intrepid warrior in the world. And so we're gonna hear about Juliana's experience. And then we'll probably have literally 2 minutes for some Q&A, but we'll try to carve out a little bit of space to make sure that if anyone in the audience has questions, we can ask them.
Hello, everyone. My name is Juliana Makonise, and I'm a sophomore studying quantitative economics. I was one of the collaborative leadership and design immersion fellows for 2022, and I had the wonderful opportunity of traveling to Nairobi, Kenya, to join the project's team at the Busara Center for Behavioral Economics. Today, I'll be sharing with you a bit about my experience as a project's intern in Nairobi. So the Busara Center for Behavioral Economics is a consulting firm that uses behavioral science interventions to solve some of the most challenging problems within the global South. So whilst most of their projects are centered on the African region, they also have some projects from the Indian region, and this is what makes work at Busara so diversified. They are committed towards changing the world one behavior at a time. And I was glad to be part of the same commitment for that period of time. As a projects intern, I worked on 2 civic engagement and community messaging projects that were centered on East Africa. What was fascinating about these 2 projects was that they were simply a replication of a project that had been done within the Americas, which was centered on the moral foundations theory. So what the economists at the Busara Center for Behavioral Economics were trying to understand was how different people had different morals based on the region in which they come from. So these morals will determine the economic decisions that they would make, whether or not they would use their money for a certain initiative, whether they would donate it, whether they would invest it. So there were different angles of looking at this particular issue, but it entailed a lot of critical thinking, it entailed a lot of design thinking itself, and a lot of collaboration from different people within the projects team. And at the end of the day, I ended up working with a lot of research specialists to design behavioral science reports based on these 2 projects. I also managed to complete 2 research ethics applications to Kenya and Uganda institutional review boards. I would say this was one of the major highlights that I had, because I actually didn't know how important it is to follow the guidelines that determine how you work directly with people, because as a behavioral economist, you work directly with people and you need to adhere to the ethical guidelines that entail that you make sure that people are comfortable and they're willing to actually express themselves throughout the research that we're doing. So this is something that I learned as I went through this particular internship. So one thing that I really found fascinating was that behavioral economics also entails a lot of games. I used to think that games are simply for fun, but within the behavioral economics field, these are actually games that can help us to determine consumer perceptions of economic concepts. So if you look at the picture that's to the bottom left, that is a typical lab where people can come in and play games on certain laptops that will be within the different cubicles. So once people play these different games, which can be risk games or time preference games or trust games, behavioral economists will be able to understand why people make certain decisions and determine whether or not people would want to participate in a certain initiative if they have a certain behavior based on the game that they play. It's a bit complicated, but it does get exciting as you go through it more and more. And also, even for behavioral economists themselves, they also play a couple of games just to build that teamwork amongst them and to understand each other as they work together on projects that actually affect people within the different regions that they're in. I would say that this internship was a huge learning curve for me because from the onset, I had to learn how to analyze data using some of the statistical software called Stata, which I hadn't really used prior to my internship at this particular firm. But as I went through the internship, I always had people willing to help me. And I also took that extra time to learn more about this particular statistical software so that I could contribute more effectively towards the work that I was doing. And it also entails a lot of background research on economic questions and methodologies. So now I have a better understanding of what actually comes into play when you're designing a research that is centered on economics. And I also now understand the dynamics of working in a small, tight-knit team, because within the different projects I was working in, I used to have close to maybe 4 or 6 team members within that particular team. So this was very exciting, it was very close-knit, and we built tight relations throughout that entire process, which made work at Busara so exciting. The major highlights. These were simply amazing. So as I mentioned before, I was working on projects centered on East Africa. So this entailed Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. So I managed to actually join the team traveling to Uganda as part of their work to meet different partners within the Ugandan region. So this was extremely exciting because I had never been to Uganda and I didn't actually think I would end up traveling more, even though I had gone to Kenya for the very first time. So whilst in Uganda, it so happened that it was my birthday and the Busara team organized a surprise birthday treat for me, which was amazing. It was something that I didn't even imagine, but they all made it happen. And of course, I had different excursions within Nairobi. I traveled to see different wildlife, to just explore the city itself, which was absolutely beautiful. So now, after all this, I believe that I've really gained a lot of insights on what behavioral economics is and also what consulting entails. And this is something that I would really love to pursue as I further my career and my educational goals. So I'm really planning on enrolling in more behavioral economics courses, maybe doing more research within behavioral science and possibly pursue graduate studies in economics, who knows, but we'll see how things go. But I can say that my entire experience at Busara and also just being part of the collaborative leadership and design immersion program really helped me understand more about myself, more about my interests, my strengths, even my weaknesses too, and how I can work towards refining those and ensure that I contribute more effectively towards my community. So this was definitely something that I cherish till now because it opened up my mind to a whole lot of opportunities that I can explore. So thank you so much for joining this presentation. And I'm really excited and to see just how I will also grow and also how other people within this program will continue expanding their experiences as they further their educational goals and also professional experiences. Thank you.
Yay, so huge round of applause to all of you. I knew this was going to be a really tight squeeze on time, and I'm seeing that it's 1 o'clock already, but I do want to make sure that I say on behalf of Emily and myself just how incredibly proud we are of all of you. And so for those who are here as visitors, Emily and I work with this cohort in the spring for the entire semester to get them ready for these experiences and then send them off. And you know, it's just so gratifying and wonderful. And we're just so proud of seeing what you've all done with the work that you did with us in the spring. And so thank you so much. It's like to see the end of this journey. And I'm just thinking about Fhynree's slide that said like growth, growth, growth. It's like clear that that's happened for all of you. And so just really wonderful to see. I know some folks might need to take off and we just didn't have time for questions. So we have to figure out how to do that in a different way, perhaps in future sessions. But Emily, do you want to close us out?
Yes, I echo all of that. And I want to thank all of you who joined us today in the audience. And I also want to thank the huge shout out of gratitude to folks from the Sarah Little Turnbull Foundation, whose generous support of this program makes it possible, as well as folks from the Phoebe Reese-Lewis. Thanks also to Phoebe Reese-Lewis, whose gifts to the college also make this program happen. So thanks for all the support, and thanks to you beautiful people for being here and sharing your incredible experiences with us.
Thanks, everybody.